Hey, welcome. You hear this word misrepresentation thrown around a lot, right? Especially in legal dramas on TV. It sounds super serious, kind of like a formal, fancy way to say someone's lying. But is that really all there is to it? Let's dig in and find out. I mean, let's be honest. When you hear that word, your mind just immediately jumps to lie, doesn't it? So that's the big question we're going to tackle. When the law looks at it, is a misrepresentation always a lie? Okay, so before we can really get into the juicy stuff, we've got to start with the basics. We need a baseline. So let's look at the official, by-the-book definition. And, well, here it is. A misrepresentation is a statement that is not true. Super simple, right? But what's really interesting here is what's not in that definition. There's nothing about trying to lie, or being malicious, or trying to deceive someone. It's just a statement that happens to be wrong. But, that simple definition, that's really just the tip of the iceberg. The real meat of the issue, the part that actually matters in a courtroom or a business deal, is all about the nuance hidden just below the surface. And that brings us to the main event. See, misrepresentation isn't just one thing. It actually splits into two totally different types. And the thing that separates them? It's all about what's going on inside a person's head when they say it. Okay, so on one hand, you've got what's called fraudulent misrepresentation. Now, this is probably the one you were thinking of. It's a statement made specifically to trick someone. But then on the other hand, you have innocent misrepresentation. And that's when someone says something that isn't true, but they genuinely, honestly believe that it is. All right, let's zoom in on that first one. Our source material puts it pretty bluntly. Deliberate lies will be fraudulent misrepresentations. The key word there is deliberate. We're talking about a classic, on-purpose, straight-up lie designed to mislead. So let's picture this. You've got a car salesman. He knows for a fact the air conditioning is busted. He literally just got the bad news from his mechanic. But when a buyer asks about it, he smiles, looks them right in the eye, and says, "Oh yeah, the AC works perfectly." That's not a mistake. That's a deliberate lie to make a sale. That's fraudulent. Okay, now let's flip the coin over. The source material says untrue statements made in good faith will be innocent misrepresentations. And the magic words here are good faith. It's all about whether the person genuinely believed what they were saying. Let's go back to our car salesman. But this time, let's say he honestly thinks the AC is great. He was driving the car yesterday, it was blasting cold air. So when the buyer asks, he says with total confidence, "Yep, the AC works perfectly." But what he doesn't know is that some little part deep inside was about to give out. And sure enough, the day after the sale, it breaks. So was his statement true? No. But was it a lie? Also no. It was just an honest mistake. All right, so we've seen both sides of the story with some pretty clear examples. Let's bring it all home and answer that first question we asked. What is the real difference? And here's the key takeaway, the most important part of all this. The actual words can be identical. In both of our scenarios, the seller said, "The AC works perfectly." So what's the difference between an innocent mistake and straight-up fraud? It's not what was said. It's what the speaker was thinking. It's all about their state of mind. It all comes down to intent. Yeah, this really breaks it down, doesn't it? Look, for both of these, the statement itself turns out to be untrue. That's the common ground. But the intent, that's the fork in the road. Was there deliberate deception, or was it just a good faith, honest belief? Answering that single question is how the law tells these two things apart. So, back to our big question. Is a misrepresentation just a lie? Well, now we know the answer is sometimes. A fraudulent misrepresentation? Absolutely, that's a lie. But an innocent one? Nope, that's an honest mistake. But this leads to a really interesting follow-up question, right? An honest mistake is one thing, and a deliberate lie is another. But what happens when someone is just, well, careless? There's actually a whole other category for that in the law. It's for when somebody says something false, not because they're trying to lie, but because they just didn't bother to check if it was true. They really should have known better. It's not quite a lie, but it's definitely more than an honest mistake. And that opens up a whole different can of worms.